Hello, my children. Welcome to the Church of Pentan Podcast, the premier Battle Spirits Saga talk show, available on all your favorite podcast platforms. May the cores be our saviors. I'm Espira, your head of surface, and joined by me, as always, are my apostles, John and Cosmic. John, how are we doing this week?
I'm doing wonderful this week. Been doing lots of testing for the Pro Tour, a little bit of Set 3. Feeling all right.
Yeah, I am struggling balancing between the Set 3 testing and the Pro Tour test. It's like the Pro Tour testing is like the stuff I know I'm supposed to do, but the Set 3 testing is the stuff I really want to do. So it's just balancing between those has definitely been a struggle for me.
Well, the Set 3 stuff's been more fun, but like I've been saying in previous podcasts, I don't know when the first event I can play in with Set 3 even is.
Right.
So, it's kind of on the back burner for me, but I have enjoyed what I've been testing so far.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying going back and forth and reading the card list and kind of figuring things out. But even for the Pro Tour right now, I do at least like 1 hour a day, I go through BSSDB and I'm just like, have I read every single card? Is there something that breaks the format in a certain way that I'm unsure of? So
I've been testing a deck for the last week or so, with the guys, and it's actually surprisingly not pterosaurs. So
wow.
It might actually play something that's not pterosaurs. We'll see.
We got to quote him on this and hold him to it when we find out right before back to pterosaurs.
I remember when Axe Biter with Elemental started becoming a thing, and most of Team TD was on Axe Biter, and it just took Valentino bashing his head in for 2 weeks until you guys were like, all right, back to pterosaur it is.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll pass read back to Terra, who knows. But I will say that the meta is more open to it. I think, it's one of the big things is definitely like purple is a big contender right now. So it's just like, how do we best deal with purple? So those are the interesting things. But I mean, hey, we're not the only ones. Cause you're also going to the Pro Tour. How are you doing this week?
Well, I've just been excited for Set 3 stuff, and I'm just trying to get back into the video side of things. So I've been slacking with Pro Tour testing. So I'm hopefully getting back to it again this week. But I mean, like, it's one of those things that I just want to play probably with what I'm comfortable with at this point, unless I find something that's just like so groundbreaking that I'll swap. But man, I just love green. That's just where I'm at. Yeah,
that's very much kind of where I think you're at, especially given like how much of a good time you had with it leading up with the ghosts and stuff like that. I've been enjoying green a lot. I think God Slaying is a great tool for green to also have to kind of turn the tables around and kind of go bigger decks. Which the lore set, which has now released everywhere, and I've been seeing everyone kind of get their things, has finally kind of come to North America, and I keep trying to explore it. It's a shame. I keep trying to put together the Emperor archetype too, and just being like, maybe something's there. Maybe Bandai put together some kind of sauce that I'm not seeing. But unfortunately, it's not there. But I'm loving cards like I'm still trying to find if I can figure out a room for Kay, because she does straight up say like draw 4, draw 5, right? And like maybe there's something there that makes a lot of sense. In a world where maybe John talked about it like a month ago, where you just do elemental spam and then you just K to draw 5, right? Like that, maybe that's good enough. So
I don't think she's good enough pre-Set 3, but I can say that I have several decks with Set 3 that plays her, and they are pretty neat. So we'll see if it goes anywhere, but I think she's a lot better Set 3 when you have a whole nother color that she can choose from. And also slows the game down quite a bit. She works really well with the shark. So
yeah, especially since and for what it's worth, I do recommend that people actually pick up the sealed product for the lore set, just because you also get the book, you get the packs, but I actually tried to be sneaky about it and pick up the singles, and I'm like, okay, well, there's the for sure 2 that you want to pick up is like the Tokiwa, and then there's like K maybe that you may want to, Godsling for sure. And then I'm like, okay, well, there's is it Truth Oath, or which one? What's the Nexus? Victory Oath. Yeah, Victory Oath. So then it's like, okay, well, pick up Victory Oath because it's got Set 3 usage. I'm like, okay, Feng Huang's a real card and he's a Warlord, so maybe you pick up Manaka just to be able to maybe take an. And all of a sudden, I'm picking up like, what is it, 12? So I'm picking up 9 of like the 12 different cards, and it's like just as expensive as if I just pick up the sealed product. So at that point, just pick up the sealed product, guys. There's probably enough, even though there is a lot there that lives within its own archetypes, there is enough weird niches like the yellow 2-drop that's a Fable Beast. Like there's a world in which maybe you just want that for the sake of its numbers and stat line. So do actually recommend picking up the thing. And I haven't read the lore book, but I'm actually excited to kind of, at least get a little bit of that also.
Yeah, for sure. I'm actually going to locals tomorrow, and I'm going to grab 2 lore sets and probably test my hopeful Pro Tour deck a little bit there and see how it does in a more, casual environment.
Right. But at least something more structured. I think something that I was listening to not a podcast, but I was watching a Yu-Gi-Oh YouTuber, Joshua Schmidt, who actually just played in a tournament this weekend. He was talking about how he had picked, and I'm not going to go too deep into the Yu-Gi-Oh thing, but essentially he picked a deck which had tested really well, but he hadn't tested it in the structure of like a timed tournament, and then realized that he was never going to finish the tournament without at least 3 to 4 draws, right? So I do think there's a lot of value in, even though you're testing with the boys and stuff, to at least get, maybe 1 to 2 on the ground testing periods with the deck in a tournament to kind of at least vibe out in the structure of a tournament. How does the deck really play?
Yeah. And then the other thing for me that helps a lot is that when I test with the guys, Alex, Ryan, etc., the decks that we test are usually like, okay, let me try this new deck. And then we ram it against purple control like 50 times in a row. Mm-hmm. Right. And it's like, okay, it's like, all right, this has pretty good results, 60, 70%. Let's ram it against pterosaurs like 50 times in a row. And then it does well against pterosaurs. So then it's like, okay, well, let me bring it to locals and see how it does against this, pretty half decent player playing green or white control or, whatever. So you get that other side of it as well. Because when you're in a testing group, everyone usually has their decks that they like to play and test, and you don't get a lot of that exposure to, the green decks, the white decks, whatever. So that tends to help me a lot, is to take, decks there, try it, see how it does, and then take it back and, then test the other matchups with the guys.
Yeah, I think getting a field spread is super important, because don't get me wrong, obviously you want to account for the matchups you'll most likely see, which are the quote unquote best decks in the format, but then you still have to account for the fact that, rounds 1, 3, 4, like maybe you play against some random jank side thing, and how do you match up against that?
Yeah, maybe you play against yellow, then it's like, oh man, what do I do?
Right? Like, turns out, against the whole meta, I'm like 60% favored, but against Luster, for some odd reason, this deck is like, 20-80. Like,
and this whole Pro Tour season, like with testing over the last month, like I think I've tested versus yellow, like, probably like against yellow, maybe 5 games. And then every time we just pound it, and it's like, okay, this deck sucks. So if someone has a good yellow deck, like, I'll have no idea what to do against it. So,
man, Godslang stonks. We're going up. We got to believe. Only believers in chat right now.
The worst part is I absolutely love Godslaying, especially since, like, hey, secret tech guys, by the way, for anyone who's listening, Godslaying works both offensively and defensively, so you can chump block, and it's no longer a chump block.
Yeah, but I play it more defensively.
Me too, 100% of the time. It's such a bigger swing. But I've also found that it's worked better for me in other colors than actual yellow itself. Yeah. So, you take what you can.
Yeah.
So, with that said, for our big topics, it's probably going to end up being a bit of a shorter episode as we kind of tie in, go towards the Pro Tour. But we do have some very exciting announcements. The Evangelion collab is something that'll be happening in 2024. So we'll be going into a little bit more details into that. Then we got a guess that flavor text. And then finally, we do have the TP reveals alongside the SPRs that we'll be able to give ourselves a little chat about as we close off this week's episode. But to kick it off, Evangelion coming to Battle Spirits Saga 2024. The way that this is specifically going to play out is that in set 4, we're actually going to get alt art collab cards like they did with Gundam in the set, except they're expanding it to be many more rated. I think it's like some 24 odd alt art collabs plus like is this the one that said like box topper? It'll be like a magic card that also happens to be an alt art. Yeah, so
and an Evangelion token of like the Mecha Ant and Golem as well, and also Ray core cards, I guess, because it does mention core cards. Evangelion core cards coming soon.
Yeah, finally, I'm so excited for core card customization. About time.
Too.
But this is huge. I think there was a lot of energy behind the Gundam collab. just because, you know, it's a known IP, it brings in a lot of new blood and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that unfortunately hurt there was that the entirety of the collab was concentrated on one specific archetype that never was really fleshed out or really all that viable, which kind of made it suck. And, you know, the most played Gundam card now is Thorn Prison. So, you know, Beam Rifle, and that was a box topper, which unfortunately doesn't play well for stores trying to move product and stuff like that when your best alt art is like 20 cents or whatever. So to that end, I think they've definitely learned a lot with how they're going about this, because this collab will encapsulate not only X rares but commons, uncommons, and I think it allows probably a bigger chance of you like fleshing out a proper Evangelion deck, even if it's just alt arts. And I do think that Gundams would have done probably a lot better if you could have at least built together a Gundam alternate art deck, even if it wasn't like custom or mechanically unique. So to that, and I'm very excited that they're bringing that to set 4. And then again, we don't know what the product's going to look like. Maybe it's like what are they called? Mega decks that you called them from JPBS Cosmic, where it's like a competitive version of a starter deck. So,
and they usually have sleeves and they'll be fully foiled and stuff like that. One Piece just got one. Beelzemon had them for Digimon, and I know Dragon Ball Super has also got them. It's a very standard Bandai product line to like help players jump in with a more competitive deck. And then also when they introduce collabs, it usually just has a starter deck because you need something to get started with. So it technically wasn't confirmed that we're going to get a starter deck yet, but I have to imagine we are.
Yeah. So if anything, I'm just I'm just stunned that any of this is even coming to set 4 at all, because like, if you guys pay attention to Facebook groups, you guys know that Cosmic always lets you guys know to talk to your local game store when distributors have the information out to be able to pre-order the sets, so that it shows Bandai that, you know, the games are going good and yada, yada, yada. And funny enough, none of this was in the pre-order details like a month ago when they were open. And they're open for a week now again, all over again. So I have to imagine that what happened was, you know, they got feedback, which, by the way, feedback is amazing. I do think they still have the surveys out for the lore set now that the set released. I highly recommend you guys go to Bandai social media page and actually fill those out, because it's a great way. Them getting feedback of the kinds that they get in those surveys are how changes make it. And I can't even begin to talk about how nuts it is that they re-rolled back a set that was about to be printed or was already in printing or something to jam even more cards into it. Like, that just blows my mind.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty excited about this collab myself. I was excited about the Gundam one too, and I felt like the execution just wasn't there. And I think that they learned a lot from that, like you said, and I'm sure like Cause is, you know, about to say, and they're hopefully doing it right. And you know, we have a lot more cards this time. They're going to be easier to get. That was the other thing with the Gundam stuff, is they were like almost impossible to actually get. So, you know, we'll see how it goes, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, the other part to go back to, like, as Espira said, just making a deck, even if it's just alt arts, to have all the EVA cards together. And we know based on the distributor information that some of the X rares are going to each, you know, 6 X rares will have it. And if you think back to how they did with set 3, how you have the Guardian, the Pilgrim, and the Sanctuary, we will probably see that same exact style with set 4 that says, hey, here's your key spirit. Here's your 2 enablers for the key spirit. And then, oh, shocker, they're all going to be Evangelion cards. So yes, you know, the 50, well, I guess over 50% of your deck is still going to be, you know, normal Battle Spirits cards. But if you want to, and if you want to bling it out, you could make a, you know, fully alt art key spirit, and then whatever the enablers are for Evangelion artwork. And then, of course, we're also getting the magics, which, again, fingers crossed, Absolute Ice Shield reprint would be super sick with Evangelion artwork. So I kind of hope that's what we get, but it's kind of a really gamble, because it says older magics, right? So it could be Angelic Pressure, right? Just on name, it'd be a really cool one to have with all the angels, but it's really anyone's guess in terms of what we actually get for magic. But hopefully, at a minimum, they're full art. That's like the one thing I'll say, like Thorn Prison was, or being like from set 2. Please, 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 please be full art.
You know, personally, with the older magics, I really, really, really hope that they pick starter deck cards or something that they haven't already made. So Ice Shield would be cool, yes, 100% on board. But like, how about like a core drain? Printing.
Yeah,
like how about core drain, so I can get a foil core drain? How about, you know, Dream Bomb? Like, I know we already have Judge Dream Bombs, but like, you know, give me a full art Dream Bomb that's foil or something. Like, pick harder to get cards or cards that don't exist in foils already. Like, that's all I'm asking. Hopefully they do that. If not, like, it is what it is, but that will be really cool to me.
Yeah, I think I'm always a big fan of like starter deck cards. I see a lot of usage in that way. And if they want to stray away from that, I think there's still a decent amount that like haven't gotten a ton of like Burning Force. The fact that we still haven't gotten a Burning Force Altard blows my mind. So that will probably line itself really well. But it does definitely feel like they're hitting this from like every angle where like, hey, alt arts from in the set, alt arts from previous sets. And again, I think this kind of encompasses their whole notion of, well, with set 4, we can't do a full collab set. So what if we flesh out between old cards that people are using, current cards from this set, and like buy a box promos and all that, the ability to be able to create a full Evangelion deck. And I think that's kind of what they're leaning into. It's like, it's our way to make a pseudo Evangelion deck using, cards that we can kind of just throw in here without, changing what the set is. Because realistically, this was probably all thrown in after the design of the entire set was done. So
Yeah, 100%. For me, one of the most exciting things out of all these announcements over the last week is that they're already planning to release more sets going into next year. They already have the whole next year planned out. And, this isn't me doomsaying, but like, I wasn't sure that was truly going to happen. So this is the closest thing to a true roadmap that we've been given so far, right? So we know that, of course, set 4, we know we're getting set 5, we know we're getting a collab set. So all of next year is planned out. So the product still being printed is great, 100%. They're all, all in on, gaining some momentum. This is great news. So hopefully at some point before the end of the year, they talk more about organized play for 2024. And then I think that that plus all these new products coming out, like, we have a lot of momentum going into the next year.
Yeah, roadmap soon TM. We keep asking for it, but hopefully soon. And maybe we're going to bring this up, but the one thing I do have to add on to, it's right, is this set was technically delayed a month as well, just to fit all of this in. So I realize 99.999% of people listening to this or watching this will not understand exactly how big of mountains Bandai just moved to make all of this happen, because this is them perfectly admitting, just to like put it on the table, saying like, hey, we screwed up year 1, we got to own it, and we have to do something big for set 4. And is this perfect? No, but it is a huge step in the right direction. And I do feel like if we can get some good news, as John mentioned, with organized play, it can be really good. Now, the one thing I will say is kind of a downer about this is like, what happens in February for like, if there's going to be a grand open, right? Now we're just playing set 3 meta still. That feels awful. So there is still that like one caveat you have to add, but I think overall it is a massive net positive for the game that will, at a minimum, it's going to get new eyes on the game and get more people saying like, hey, what is this? Look at all these beautiful artworks that we get. And I think that's positive, but it's really going to be kind of a rough Q1. And I think the rest of the year from there will get smoothed out pretty quickly. Yeah,
I think realistically, it's going to suck to say, but like set 3 is going to be it's a long but short format, right? It's like, all the tournaments are happening in a very quick burst in the span of like 3 months between kind of like the first grand opens over to Worlds. And then again, with the delay does mean that this format kind of drags on, but we also don't know what organized play is going to look like, right? I mean, this game released in March. So, which means organized play had only really started about like a week or two after that, which means if, based on the release of the set, we might just kind of have maybe not a full year, but kind of the same kind of year we've had now, which outside of just wanting more events and kind of wanting localized regionals and stuff like that, it has felt like a full year of events for the most part. So I'm not too kind of concerned on that part. And for what it's worth, as unfortunate of a thing as to say, I am okay with sacrificing the mental well-being of our current players for the span of like a month or two while they complain about the meta, blah, blah, blah. If it means that we get an explosive set 4 that brings in like whole new life into the game, whole new players, not like that. I am okay making that sacrifice for them.
And to be fair too, there's pre-release, right? So it's technically a month delayed, but it might only be like 3 weeks, or depending on how early they do the pre-release, 2 weeks. So we have that to look forward to with Evangelion pricing on top of it. Like they're going all in on Evangelion.
Well, plus the people who do grind, all of the events, like me, you, several other people, that month after Worlds, say, February, I certainly don't mind not going to any events for a month, because, between now, well, not now, but like post Pro Tour, like there's so many events crammed in there. So like November, December, and January are crazy. So having a month off from Grand Opens or regionals or whatever they're going to do, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. But hey, Espira, you got any plans in February?
Yeah, I got Fusion World coming, baby. Like, that's fine. I'm okay with taking the month off.
Me too. I saw that. I'm like, oh, cool. Now I just get to enjoy Fusion World for a month. And like, I'm sorry in advance, everybody. I'm totally going to take like a small little break until like spoilers roll in for set 4. But like Fusion World for a couple of weeks, let's go. 100%.
Yeah, pretty okay with that. But I will say, probably the biggest thing outside of like, don't get me wrong, Evangelion collab set, huge, yada, yada, yada. The fact that we're getting real pre-releases now, like Kaz had mentioned, absolutely massive. And I can't understate, like when I used to work at Jasco, like it is insane. It's like having a pre-release is like a 10x multiplier on like LGS attendance across the country. Even more so because you also have to account that stores that don't even run locals will usually at least run a pre-release, which means locals that had 0 players can have anywhere from like 6 to a dozen players, which is absolutely huge when you account for the fact that like that's the first person's new player chance to come in and be like, oh, people come here to play. And from pre-release, maybe then start a local scene, which is absolutely massive. I am a big fan of the fact that we're getting real pre-releases with real prizes, and the fact that they're themed around Evangelion is like a slam dunk in my opinion. So with that said, kind of a couple of things to kind of round out the rest. So 307 total types of cards, 15 X rares, which breaks down to what? Every color gets 2, and then like one, like there's like 3 other ones that kind of spread out across.
Yeah. I assume blue and green will get an extra one.
Just
blue
to fill
might get
them
2
out.
extra ones. Yeah, it might be 2 extra ones for blue, 1 extra one for green, then everyone else gets 2.
What does it cost?
Or big copium moment. Well, we're gonna have a dual color double symbol. That's all I'm saying. Hopefully,
pretty good.
I want to see.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of multicolor, and the day that we start touching into those, oh my god! And Smog doesn't count. I don't care what you guys say in the comments.
He does not.
So 6 collaboration X rare, 18 special rares, and that 18 special rares, it kind of bumps up from the like. There's 18 collab rares. Like there's going to be a lot of ways to kind of lux out your deck depending on how you want. Especially that now we get 2 saga rares. So I think the only thing that's really missing. And I know a lot of people dislike secret rares, but I think the game needs a secret rare personally. I think it would add a lot to the value of a box for local game stores. But the fact that we're kind of kicking off into at least 2 saga rares, greater chance for, one of them to be a competitive hit, maybe sustain some value, make it a little bit harder to pull. And it's like a weird balance between trying to like, hey, accessible, cheap game, but at the same time, a game that stores can like carry and actually make a profit on so that they actually don't mind picking up products. So overall, I think the changes, huge slam dunk, absolute gargantuan move by Bandai to actually make this happen. So hopefully with the, they've been on social media talking about it more. They've made like a social post like every other day talking about Evangelion, which is, a good improvement. So kind of see how that carries on going into next following months. And I mean, I don't want to say I'm waiting for more reveals because we haven't even got the release of set 3 yet, but now I'm kind of excited to see what comes down the pipeline. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think that the full collab set later in 2024 is going to be a pretty huge success. Like as long as they don't completely punt organized play to scare people away, I think that this set will bring in a lot of people and really solidify the player base. So that's my hope anyway.
Yeah, totally agree. And then to kind of bring out, organized play, good touch points. We did get some additional details about what the Wave 3 is going to look like. So we did get our mats now. We don't know what we don't know what the designs of the cards are going to be yet. But we do know that top 16 gets a Mandela playmat, and the winner actually gets a Scotty playmat. And I have to say, this is probably easily the most gorgeous playmat they've made for the game thus far. I am a huge fan of this Scotty mat. Like, I'm not a zones guy, and even then, like, I don't care. This is just fantastic art. And for what it's worth, probably the Pro Tour art for Scotty. So
yeah. So this is the first time I'm actually seeing this, which is pretty cool. I don't think I've seen this yet. Does that just say winner all over it? Is that what?
So yeah, it says Battle Spirits Saga Grand Open winner in the corner here, and then the rest are just the zones.
All right, cool. So
all in like the black and gold.
Yeah. So the designs are cool. Is this Pro Tour exclusive?
This is Grand Open. So this is for the Grand Open winner of Wave 3. Yeah, I know that. I know you don't get the chance to participate, but
no, it's fine. I mean, even if I do, like, these mats aren't that exciting to me. I mean, I have Grand Open mats upstairs, but like, I'm still holding out hope at some point that they have an exclusive mat for like a Pro Tour at some point, or for Worlds or something. Like the Grand Open mats are like kind of whatever, they get thrown into the pile. But I just want something like exclusive.
I hear that.
Let me sweeten the deal at least a little bit for you. I know it's not going to fully bring you around on it, but there's no online events for Wave 3. So this Scotty mat is actually pretty freaking rare.
It's
all things
5 of, I guess, or 6 of.
6, yeah.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks awesome, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it looks gorgeous. That is a good point. I mean, we are getting up to Worlds very quickly. Right? We've got, 4 months till then? It'd be great. We do have details as to where it is. Yeah, I mean, ballpark.
3 months, yeah.
Yeah.
So, some news soon in regards to that would be great. Just kind of like, hey, this is your cap off event. What's it look like? So some updates on that front would be really cool. Especially since like it's Bandai Fest, right? So notably, we're probably going to have a ton of announcements. And because this year is the year that they might finally made the umbrella company of Bandai card games, whatever, right? So like, hopefully we get some news there, and some exclusive anything about having participated there. I think would be kind of a good move forward. So
yeah, that'll be a really awesome event. Like, I'm really looking forward to Bandai Fest. This is like, I think if they do it right, which I'm confident that they will, it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, they did the rebrand and everything, so it gives me a lot of hope. Like, if anything, as someone who, going back to the original Battle Spirits Saga announcement, and something that they really haven't done, and I know I said this on a previous podcast, but I'll do the short version now, is thinking back to where I was with like Bushiroad. You never just had one grand celebration of all their games, right? And Bandai, outside of Japan, never really done this before either, where they're like, hey, we have these 4 or more games, way more games in Japan, obviously, but there was nothing like, hey, we're all Bandai players at the end of the day. We're all enjoying the various card games. And some of us play multiple of their card games, to be fair. So it's going to be nice just to have everyone under one roof and see your friends across all the different games. That I think is just a huge win. Like, it should, again, assuming they do it right and all that good stuff, it should feel like a wonderful end of year celebration. And hopefully then they do it every year, because I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I mean, we'll probably get, there'll be, I assume, some Fusion World stuff there. Maybe like a release or pre-release type thing, maybe like side event. They might even announce a new game.
Maybe,
who knows?
Maybe
Never
one
know
where
with
we
them.
all come together in union and face off in an arena or something.
Gotta be useful right now.
We'll see, but I think it'll be a great time. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going. My plane ticket's already booked. I just I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully next year they do more, and the world isn't just Asia plus LA. So, and which I'm sure is going to be a thing, right? I think if anything, this is probably just a test run for them, and then depending on how well this one does is kind of how they scale out from there. So, looking forward to kind of hearing more news about that soon. I mean, at the end of the day, we know where the tournament's going to be, so book your flights, book your tickets and stuff, and get your hotels figured out. But regardless, it will be nice to kind of see what the big plan is, what the big picture is. So excited to see that, and like Klaus was saying, be under the same roof. Because a lot of my friends don't play Battle Spirits, they play other Bandai games, so all of us being in the same place is going to be very, very cool. So, with that said, we're going to be jumping into Guess That Flavor Text. This one is where I present the lads with a flavor text, and then they get a couple of lifelines if they can't guess what card it comes from. And then we'll be going from there. I kind of lost track of keeping up points, but I'm fairly certain John's ahead by like
way ahead. Not even. We don't got to keep track no more.
Yeah, I think we just kind of know that the guy reads his cards. And I will say, I'll read it out, and then I got a couple of commentaries on this one, but after you guys guess it. So, take care when telling jokes around machine beasts. Although they love a good laugh, they will first thoroughly analyze your attempt at humor to determine whether it is satire, wordplay, self-deprecation, or some combination thereof. And trust me, there is no hell like having the brilliance of your own joke explained to you afterwards.
So, white card. I have a feeling this is like an ice princess or someone just trying to be a smartass. I don't know. Offhand, I'm gonna need a hint.
Yeah, I don't have it either offhand.
Okay, so it is actually a machine beast.
Okay.
Oh, all right then.
So it is not an ice princess. That is not, you know, and for some of our listeners who are kind of confused why they went machine beast, why they went ice princess. There's a lot of lore text actually on the cards that share a relationship between the ice princesses and the machine beast, and they go back and forth quite a bit on that. So
I still don't know.
Just random guess, Mechatrice, I guess. I have no idea, because that's like the most obscure thing I could think of that you'd pull from, but I have no idea.
It is not Mechatrice. And for John, your last lifeline is that is a 3-cost. A 3-cost machine beast.
3-cost machine beast. What 3-cost machine beast would have flavor text?
Well, technically they all do, but
yeah.
Well, then that doesn't narrow it down at all.
Which ones have a paragraph on them?
The only thing I can think of is Glass Bear is the 3-cost. Is he even a machine beast? I don't even know.
He is a machine beast, I think.
Right?
Yeah, he is. There's Pegasi owns a machine beast.
No, it's not Peggy.
Yeah.
Those are like the only two I can think of.
Glass Bear is a good one.
Glass Bear is a good one. How about you, John? What do you think?
I don't know.
Okay, so you want to be careful of telling jokes around Raccoon Guard.
Oh God!
Wow, that is.
Oh yeah, I just got to figure based on the amount of text, it was a vanilla, right? Because all the vanillas have. Okay, yeah, that was.
Yeah,
I just pulled that card for somebody too to send off some because they're actually picking up Battle Spirits. Like, here's a bunch of stuff, and they're like, yeah, all right, it was used in white aggro.
I unironically considered using this card early on in a few of my white decks, not even just in white aggro, but just as like a beefy vanilla with stats. I was like, well, fish is good, and it's kind of like fish 2.0, so like why not? And so I and actually this card is featured on a ton of art, right? Like he's the absolute ice shield spirit, isn't he?
Yep. And an inescapable avalanche, rest in peace, guy.
Oh, is he really on inescapable?
Yeah, he's the one who's running away from it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you can't see that, but he is.
He's very small.
Yeah, he's running over. So it is.
He totally made it. I don't care what the card says. He made it out there. I believe in you, buddy.
It is insane how like intense some of these like cards are toward the magic cards are towards some of their spirits. Like Angelic Pressure. I didn't know for the longest time that was like Air Vada getting like crushed, like absolutely mashed. So, but yeah. So the thing I have to say is that like this is the first long flavor text I've read on the show, and is actually the first long flavor text I've ever read. I haven't read any of the Vanilla's flavor text. And after having read that, Bandai, I know you guys are making changes moving forward. Long flavor text on vanillas is not like, and this is like irrelevant of me not liking the fact that the sets have like 20 vanillas or whatever. This is not the way to do it. I was reading this and I was 3 sentences in. I'm like, like yeah. I when it comes to flavor text, I think if you go longer than like a sentence and a half, you're kind of just getting too much in the sauce when it comes to just being on the card itself. So
yeah,
it's my one mini gripe with that. But regardless, big fan of Raccoon Guard. And I do at least enjoy that it kind of opens up the world a little bit about that. So again, be mindful of telling your jokes around Machine Beast if you don't mind your joke being told to you. All right. So with that said, moving on, we do have SPRs and TPs tournament pack cards. These are the cards you can get for participating at locals when the set releases. That have revealed. This is the last thing left for what there is to talk about set 3 before it actually releases, and we can start diving into like the meta and all things like that. So I think I actually enjoy quite a few of the picks personally, in terms of like what they did with the SPRs and all that. So we did actually get all the magics, which was really, or not all the magics, but like we have 4 magics of each color, which kind of got represented as SPRs, and then we got the guardians also, which kind of cool, like duality there. One day Nexus SPRs, please Bandai, they stay on the board the entire game. It'd be really cool if those were SPRs. But kicking off, we have Double Heart. I'm excited for that. I think people sleep on Double Heart. I think those are people who haven't been Double Strike chomping enough in their life to understand how good this is. And I love this SPR because I hate the regular art.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So we got Double Heart. We got Soul Crush. 5
sick art. Yeah.
Yeah, this thing's super cool.
Super sick.
So much.
Yeah, the whole color scheme of this card is just great.
Yep.
And we're talking about like the brutality of the magics versus the spirits, right? And the golem is just getting literally sliced in half.
Yeah. So we got Soul Crush, Dimensional Rift, which is the white magic card that cheats out a when the spirit blocks. Not too much insane usage right now, but the more and more that card pool goes on, because white will forever get when the spirit blocks. The more and more usable this is.
Cool.
The art's super sick. I gotta say, in terms of XRs and SPRs, the art has definitely been a huge level up that I've really been appreciating. And then finally, Strong Draw.
Woo! All right, I'll get out of the way.
Huge welcome. Because I think when you were talking about Strong Draw initially, because we weren't sure if it was going to be in the set yet or not, there's like a dozen different reprints of this card in like JPBS. So
yeah, it's one of the most iconic cards for blue, and something that we'll see played for basically ever in blue as well. So the fact that I got SPR, and obviously get them early it's the card that's just going to go up over time, which good. We need like more money SPRs, right? And then also the artwork was just gorgeous. So I'm very excited to get 4 of these, sit on 4 of them, and then play any blue deck you play is running 4, and you'll be very happy to see it because the artwork is gorgeous.
Yeah, the art's super cool. I'm a big fan of this too. My only complaint, and it's just nitpicking, is that where the reduction symbols are, they kind of just blend into the art, which is kind of annoying. But maybe when you have it in your hand, it's a little bit different.
With the foiling and everything.
With foiling, yeah. But the art's sick. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember, and I'd have to look at Starbliss Draw. Because I know in JPBS they actually leave the BS on the back of the cards. When it comes to Battle Spirits cards, are they always just blank cards on the back? I think so. Right?
For us.
I think, doesn't Starblast have BSS on the back?
I don't believe so.
For the SPR? No.
No, it does not. It has like a kind of symbol on it, like an arcanic symbol on it, but
it's a pyramid, right? So
don't even.
Yes, OG Starbliss Draw is 100% a pyramid, and I will not like this is a pyramid, and I will not accept anything else.
Yeah,
we're not having this last discussion yet. My God.
All right. And then we move on to the Guardians. So we got Ancient Guardian Trident Dragon. Very sick art. Love me my dragons. And then we got Mommy number 1, Ancient Castle Guardian Nocturna. She looks absolutely gorgeous.
I don't like it. I mean, I know I'm on like
boo this man.
What? You don't like it, John?
I'm on my own island here, I think, but I just don't like this art. I don't like the non-SPR either all that much. Her hands look weird. Like
Are you just not into like the power pose woman?
I mean, I know that she's a nightling, so she has like weird fangy fingers, but like
sure.
It just doesn't work for me.
I'm stunned. I'm shocked. Yeah. I thought this would have slam dunk for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the art in this set is a step up, but this one isn't my favorite.
All right. Fair. All right. Always up for surprises. We got Empress Guardian Red. Yeah, go ahead.
This one on the other hand is awesome.
Yeah. Also my favorite, but I just think yellow has like the best SPRs because the way that the color matches on all of them. But for those that maybe missed the last one, it's also worth mentioning the reason why all the artwork looks better, so much better in this set, is because the Guardians, Sanctuaries, and Pilgrims are all BSS exclusive. So that like literally is current artwork. And then with set 4, based on the feedback they got with set 1, set 4 is also going to have more exclusive artwork. But this has also been like Bandai's thing that they do, right? For like Digimon, One Piece, so there was like a shit ton of screenshots in set 1 and set 2, and then they got custom artwork. Unfortunately, Saga followed the same path here, but I am very happy that we're getting our own exclusive artwork, especially the Guardians looking as good as they do. And yeah, the Red Queen is, I think Other Landers is just going to be super fun deck to play. It might not be the most competitive, but it's going to be like insanely fun to high roll and get those turns off. And I just like the way that this card looks. So 100% sits on the field. It's the key spirit enabler, like all the Guardians are, right? They're the key spirit for the archetypes they want to be doing in. So I think just flavor wise, overall, new artwork, they look great. They're all pictured with the cores of the realm. Love the cards, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and there are some people talk about how they're confused when they look at her because they don't know what's going on. She is meant to be bedazzled out. She is a queen. It is supposed to be gaudy. It is supposed to be extravagant. I think this card beams with color. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I think there's a phenomenal SPR.
Great as a foil too.
100%. I can't wait to hold this card. And then imagine if imagine if all the gold she was wearing was actually gold stamped foiled.
Don't break my heart like
that. I know.
Don't get me started on that.
I know we're not getting that, but that would look so good.
Yeah.
And then going on from there, Sleepless Guardian Frost Tiger. He just looks cool.
I love this one too. Like they did a really good job, like the artist did, with the colors on all these cards, right? Like the colors just all look so great together. Like it's not just some, here's a random background. It's like these colors work really well together. And I feel like in the other sets, it wasn't like that. It was just kind of like, here's some art. Everything just meshes a lot better this set.
Yeah, I also go ahead.
Sorry, I'd say this one's also super depressing if you realize the pose that he's making in the flavor text, where it's like their world is getting destroyed and he's the final guardian, the last one standing before he gets pulled out of there. So it's like a cry of defeat that is pictured in the SPR. Like, just beautiful.
I think 100%. I think what's really important about these, I think, is because the artists were probably given a certain art direction of like, hey, these are guardians, which means you need to think about their environment because they have to be involved with their sanctuaries or whatever. So like it feels like I think what you were talking about, John, is that with the previous SPRs, it just felt like it was key art slapped on top of something, right?
Yeah.
Whereas what really kind of fleshes, and I love these, is the fact that it's like we have to care about the scene, right? Like they're the guardians, which means we have to care about their backgrounds because like, hey, we need the gems and stuff, and we kind of need those to kind of round about and come together. So I absolutely agree that taking a more holistic approach to SPRs as opposed to just key art slapped on top of whatever makes it feel so much better.
Yeah.
So, and then moving on from that, the final guardian that we have showcased, the Forest Guardian Alroan, which is the green guardian. I think she looks absolutely amazing, and I refuse to accept all the blasphemy I've been hearing on Discord this past week. Blah, blah, blah. It looks like she has weird legs. Blah, blah, legs. Blah. This looks like a weird crop. You guys are smoking the pipe. Weird I don't care. I think she looks phenomenal.
Gamers need to go outside and touch some grass. It's a flower, guys. Come on. It's
and if she's the grass you're touching, bro, come on.
She's better than the purple one, but like this,
man,
again, like, despite me not loving the bottom half of the card, like, again, the colors look great together. It really captures the essence of like green. So, 10 out of 10 for that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love this SPR. I think all the Guardians were phenomenally done, honestly. So huge ups there. And then I think the last one is the Saga, which Truth God Mandela done in pixel art.
Slaps. I don't care what anyone says, man. I love this shit.
I'm glad we have someone who loves it. I'm glad we got someone who loves it. Here's my thing. I love that they're taking gambles like this. I love that they're trying new things. I love that with every saga, they're like something different. So they went with like the CG with Nova. They went with like traditional, more Japanese kind of art style with the Tokiwa. And now with Medela, they're going pixel art. Even though, which is weird because I love pixel art. I spent so much of my life doing like Flash animations and stuff like that. So pixel art usually speaks to me. But I don't love this, but I love that they're trying new things with it. So
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty indifferent about it. Like, I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. Like, like you said, I'm happy that they're doing something different each set with their own style for the Saga Rare. So, like, 100% on board with it. Half the people are going to hate it, half are going to love it, but it's perfect for what they're trying.
Yeah, I think having an opinion is better than no opinion, which I think that the issues I could say about like Nova Saga is just that it just kind of exists, right? And some people kind of like it. Some people are like, well, that's not really my thing. But I feel like there weren't too many strong opinions about it. Whereas at least with set 2, it's a very distinct art style. Like, if anything, the only thing with set 2 is that the champion Tokiwa looks very similar, and they're supposed to kind of like, that was the idea behind it. But unfortunately, I think they look so similar that it kind of hurts this distinction of the Saga Rare. But at least you can feel something about it, which I think is something that you can say about this. So
yeah, going a quick, like, just across Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, and stuff like that, people seem to be way more positive on this one than they were with Tokiwa, which I like Tokiwa as well, because again, it was the more traditional style, but I realized that one really didn't resonate well with the community. But again, I'm also just going to echo that the fact that they're doing something different every time is very welcoming. But the one thing I will say, and this is probably just because I'm biased and I love this card, and everyone that knows I'm literally going to play this for the first Grand Open, please, of all that is holy, let the borders be gold stamped finally. Like, that has just been a consistent miss with these sagas. I am begging you, Bandai, if you're listening, give us the gold stamp cards already, like the double X rares in Japan. We know what they're supposed to look like. Give us that Japanese Battle Spirits quality. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I think they stepped up on the art, and now if they could just step up on their printing methods, I'm and like, look, we've seen what they can do with the lore set, so clearly, like, it's not like a card weight issue, because those things look phenomenal. So, like, just they can do it. They've got the technology. There are other games show that they can do it. This game shows that they can do it. So they just kind of need to commit in set to kind of really give it to us. So in that regard, those are all the SPRs and everything you can expect to get out of set 3. But of course, if you're playing at your locals, there are TPs as well. So we'll just go ahead and talk about them. This time around, every color got 2. So kicking off our first one, Sword Dragon Emperor Excalibus, 7 cost, 3 red reduction, Ancient Dragon. On levels 1, 2, and 3 during your attack step, if 2 or more of your opponent's spirits have been destroyed this turn, treat this spirit as level 3. And then on level 3, when the spirit attacks, select one of your opponent's spirits with 4k or fewer BP, or one of their nexuses, and destroy it. It is a 4k for 1, a 7k for 3, and a 10k for 7. That's all right.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other red card one too, and then we'll just talk about them all at the same time. Probably just better that way.
Yeah, and then we got Sangarip. If someone's got a different guess on that one, go for it. But I think that's about as good as we're gonna get. 2 cost, 1 red reduction, Skyfang. On levels 1, 2, and 3, Flash Awaken. And then on level 2 and 3 during your attack step, this spirit gains 2k BP for each of your spirits with only 1 core on it. It's a 2k for 1, a 4k for 4, and a 6k for 6. Also,
yeah, so this card, okay, so the first one's terrible. And the reason is that it's just way too expensive. Like, there's so many other red cards you could play that basically do the same thing for fewer cores. I don't think it'll ever find a home. If there's something that works with Ancient Dragons, then maybe, but it's just, it's his level 1, 2, 3 effect is way too hard to get off. If you do get it off, you're probably winning the game anyway, and then there won't be anything for his level 3 to even kill at that point. So I don't think this one's good. However, the 2-drop I think is actually pretty solid. And the reason is that the Awaken deck desperately needed a cheap Awaken guy. Desperately. So the fact that you can play one for 1 core now is huge for that deck. It actually makes the Comet Dragon playable, because you can play a cheap Awaken guy and then play him once you have your board established, instead of the other way around. Because I tested a deck for the Pro Tour that was like an Awaken deck, but you're forced to play the 4-drop set 2 one that has 4 reduction. And because that's just the cheapest one. So
Did you think about 2-drop guy?
He doesn't exist.
So he's basically a vanilla 2-drop with Awaken, but he's from the starter deck, if I'm not mistaken, which is, to echo what you were saying, like he just wasn't good enough where this one actually has a relevant level 2 that you care about and plays well into the Awaken. But there is another one, Dragonoid.
Yeah, it's a Dragonoid. It's a
Shock Troop.
Yeah, Dragno Shock Troop. So it's a 2 cost with a 1 red reduction Dragonoid, and all it has is flash on 1, 2, and 3. It's a 1K, 3K, and 5K.
Oh, okay. Well, then I totally missed this guy.
My jank is paying off.
Forgot he even existed. But anyway,
that's why
I think that the Skyfang guy might see some play.
It's a strict upgrade, right? Like for what you want.
I'm not saying he's great. He's not gonna like blow me away, but there is a home for him.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say for the other one, though, is it's clearly meant to be for the Red Guardian deck, and it plays very well because that deck cares about Ancient Dragons. It's a 5 cost or higher, so it goes with 3 Sanctuary. The level 3 is very relevant because it combos well with Red Guardian. So, like, all that is fine, but at the same point, as you mentioned, like, you should already be winning the game enough at that point where you don't care about it. However, this is like an okay sideboard card against yellow and purple. We are constantly getting the Red Guardian's effect, and then you can blow up their Nexus. That said, I'm hard-pressed to imagine that this finds room in the sideboard, but it's one of those things like it had to cost more than 5, but then all Ancient Dragons are like 6 cost minimum, so you have to make it like 6 or 7, but we're getting to in the top end of it where it's like, I just want to play the Red Guardian by himself and draw off Ruby, and this one is like maybe good in a handful of matchups, and that's it. So I agree, like overall, not that excited about it. I get where it's supposed to be, but it's something you probably just put in a sideboard maybe sometimes and forget about otherwise.
Yeah, I think it reads well on paper when you contextualize the meta. Like blue is going to be real, so like, hey, it's a repeatable form of Nexus removal. And like, hey, it you're gonna destroy stuff anyways in this deck, so you're gonna get his level 3 for free. But I think unfortunately it kind of just doesn't play out the way you want because again, your bigger stuff, like by the time you're getting this guy down, you're actually like swinging over with like this. Where is he? With this guy and like doing those kinds of things, and it's like at that point, do you kind of really need the other guy? Maybe not. So
I mean, it's just my biggest gripe with the TP Dragon is that like 7 cores for level 3. Like, I understand that you just make him level 3 with his level 1, 2, 3 effect, but like in the turns that you can't, I don't want to have to devote 7 cores for him to do anything.
Yeah.
If that was like 5 cores, then like, okay, I can maybe see playing them somewhere. But 7 cores, like, come on.
It's a lot. It's effectively your entire turn.
The Awaken deck, and then you put the 7 cores on him and then he attacks, and then you put the cores off of him. Oh, yeah, I know.
God. So either way, moving on to purple. I like purples a lot personally. I think they're actually really, really good. So you got Corpse Knight Velium, 5 cost, 2 purple reduction, undead. On levels 1 and 2, during your turn, when a spirit is summoned from your trash, select one of your opponent's exhausted spirits and destroy it. It's a 3K for 1 and a 7K for 4. I think the fact that it can hit anything is a huge deal. I think this is like very annoying for your opponent to have to work around.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, and then you can yeah, well, I think it's just like, because I think the way I've been looking at purple right now is that there's a lot of restrictions on kind of like how its removal works, right? Like you have to hit an exhausted thing. And then it's like you can remove cores from it, but then your opponent can kind of play around it by just jamming a bunch of cores on whatever. Alternatively, you can play like the previous CP, which is like Genevieve, I think is her name. But she hits like 7s. So I think this is kind of the first indication of purple being able to kind of like unquestionably hit anything outside of like whatever's got armor purple. And I think to that sense, it can make like for an annoying build.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. My biggest gripe is that it's a 3K at level 1.
Sure.
So, like, that's not my favorite for a 5-drop, but that is on brand for purple. So you can't really complain that much, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good pickup for the Immortal deck, which I know people probably weren't, keen on anyways, and I don't think it's going to be all that great either ways, but the undead typing matters. It's really great for all the Immortal triggers that you can put into that deck and just getting to like machine gun kill stuff in a turn. So I like it. I think it's good for that deck to get pickup and have more of a unique play style out of purple, which is welcome, but outside of that, you're just probably not caring about this guy. But I love him for you.
I mean, it's fine if you have Beldegors, right? I mean, this plus Beldegor is, pretty good. And plus he brings back Beldegor if he ever dies. So, that's pretty solid. But I don't know if he'd ever play him over like Mordred per se. Although
Sure.
Mordred does have a win summon, I don't know. I mean, there's
that's the point, right? We're getting to
give and take.
They're building out more of the other archetypes in purple, and I like sure core control is still probably the best. Don't get me wrong, but at least they're finally pushing these other ones to be different enough. Like, right, we saw that. Well, Lamorak is getting pushed other places, but Lamorak was meant to be 4 Shadows and 4 Nemesis.
Right.
So they're at least expanding these various archetypes instead of just playing like the whole purple good stuff issue that we've been plagued with for set 1 and set 2.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if anything, I just like the deepening of the card pool, and at least there's considerations. Is like if the meta looks a certain way, maybe I can play this and kind of play it differently. Then we got Third Eye Snake, 2 cost, 1 purple reduction serpent. On level 2, when your opponent places a core with one of their effects from the void onto one of their spirits or into their reserve, draw a card. Is a 2k for 1 and a 3k for 2. It's like a silver bullet, which I think is funny and cute, but the way it's weird. It's like the way its stat lines line up, it's not great, but the decks that kind of do this anyways are usually the ones where stats don't matter as much. So there's a world in which you could do this to kind of like keep up with like green, which like Green Gale's a real deck. So I mean,
Yeah, it's fine against green. The main problem I have with this is that if you play it in your sideboard as a silver bullet against green, you can't really just play like 2, right? Because you want it early, or else it doesn't really do anything. So then you need to play 4. So that takes up 40% of your sideboard just to maybe draw some extra cards against green. So which means you just have to main deck it. So I mean, I don't know. Like I think it's a fine card. It's not awful. It's just
very specific.
Really awkward in that you have to really commit to it. And I don't think green's ever going to be so much of the meta where you're like, man, I really need to play 4 snakes in my sideboard. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I mean, I love green personally, but I do think it's still not going to be like. I think if you hit like, if any deck ever hits like population size of like 40% plus, there's maybe a consideration to start like hard mainboarding silver bullets. But outside of that, yeah, it's probably a little bit too niche on that front. Then we got Macaroni Pentan, 2 cost, 1 yellow reduction, Lyric Bird Wanderfey. On levels 2 and 3, when destroyed by the opponent, return this card from your trash to your hand. It's a 1k for 1, a 3k for 3, a 4k for 4.
Yeah, this card's great.
Card is gas AF.
Yeah, I mean it's just basically an unkillable lyric bird. So I don't want to say this is exactly what yellow needed, because I mean they need lots of things, but it's not a bad card at all. I don't know where it fits just yet, but it's an unkillable spirit. So we know how good those are from the past. So
yeah, in Magic this is what a squee, I guess. I think
no, squee comes back from your graveyard, start of your turn.
Okay.
So
similar,
this
really.
guy, I mean, I'm sure there's some Magic comparison, but
yeah,
but it's a solid card.
Mm-hmm. Repeatable. And it's not like a hard once per turn repeatable. So if you have multiple of these, you can kind of keep on going ham. I think this is the first time I've ever noticed that Pentans have fingers.
Yep, tiny little ones.
I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love this bird. I think thematically he's awesome. I think there's actual real usages for him in yellow. He makes me feel a little bit weird with his fingies, but it's fine. And then we got Great Eagle Tiazi, 4 cost, 2 yellow reduction, Fabled Beast. Levels 1, 2, and 3, 1 summon. Select one of your opponent's spirits, reduces PP by 2k during this turn. And on level 3, during your attack step, all your level 1 birdfolk spirits cannot be blocked by your opponent's spirits that are level 2. It's a 3k for 1, a 4k for 2, and a 6k for 4. Am I the only one who thinks this should have been a birdfolk?
I get why it's not because of balancing reasons, but it's going to piss me off until the end of time. But it should have just been a birdfolk, man. Like let it be good. Let yellow be good. That's all I'm asking for. Come on.
Yeah. No, this card right on theme with the rest of the TP set for the most part. This card is just fine. It's another eagle for the eagle deck. That's like its best its best trait here.
We're starting to hit critical mass.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the biggest thing with it. But I mean, it's fine. You do play this if you play the Birdfolk deck. So I mean, there's that to add if you're learning to play that strategy.
Yeah, and like the win summon effect to give -2k to something. I mean, that's not nothing. Like it's and
It'll
and
snipe something.
and
Yeah.
his stat line is pretty solid. Yellow doesn't hate a 4k for 2 cores, so
Mm.
it might find a home somewhere.
Yeah, like the whole point of it is, right, if you think about the bird folk archetype, you play the Harpy Nest, which makes your opponent's spirits level 1. So if you're going against white, all of a sudden you can shrink their 8 cost guy by 2, and now your bird folks are like killing an elephant if you want to for whatever reason, right? So it's meant to be that like trade up value for it, sure, but again, should have just been a bird folk so it can count itself. For the love of God, that's all I wanted, but oh well.
No, then we'll maybe the next set. Moving on to white, we've got Tank Mobile Hetzer, 3 cost, 2 white reduction mecha on level 2 during your end step. At the start of the step, refresh all your spirits with no effects listed. So it's a 3k for 1, 4k for 2. Vanillas.
This is just the usual TP set Tank Mobile. There's one in every TP set. This just happens to be the one for this. It's like the laziest design on the face of the planet. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, the art's cool. I just hope that these cards never see play, just to spite Bandai, because they're so lazy with these.
Yeah, here's the downside, right? So blue does care about vanillas, and like there's a very real archetype where you play vanillas with the blue deck, and like this would be insane for that. I hope that never happens because I don't want to put a bunch of vanillas in my decks, but it's one of those things like I don't know where this has a home unless it's supposed to be like foreshadowing that we're getting the vanilla deck with set 4.
Yeah.
I mean, its stats are fine. It's going to cost 1 to play, and for 2 upkeep, it's a 4k with a relevant effect for that deck. It untaps tokens. It untaps all of your vanillas. Like, as far as like the tank mobiles go, it's like S tier, but I don't know if like we're ever going to find a home for this card.
Yeah, I think the things that's always tough when you're talking about like vanilla archetypes is the fact that like to make vanilla archetypes viable, you need to include vanilla cards in there to kind of make them actually do stuff. And then you kind of have to find the balance between how much cards we want that do stuff that help out versus the cards that don't do stuff. I will say that at least in Battle Spirits, stat line battles kind of matter a little bit more than I've seen in other games, which kind of help that out a little bit. But really, the only game I've ever really seen do like the vanilla archetype really well was Dragon Ball. And the only reason for that is because you can tutor out your good non-vanilla cards. And then you just spit out vanillas on the board. So I think it's a very hard thing to balance. But I do think for vanilla decks, this is you play this, right? You just do.
Yeah, there's probably some white like aggro deck that wants this guy because they have so many vanillas in that deck already that maybe it lets you go like all in aggro and still have some sort of defense with like the mobile golems or whatever. So like that could be a thing, but I feel like white aggro has so many like options now that maybe it doesn't even want or need this, but it is like another option for the white aggro deck.
Well, we're going into a flood meta, so maybe vanilla beatdown just goes big now instead of small.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
I gotta mention because I know someone's going to, but like white green tokens is a thing that technically got more support in set 3, but to that point, we're going into a flood meta, and do you want to play tokens? Probably not. Mm-hmm. That's what the card was meant to do, and it's also a mecha which cares about mechas in the white token deck. But again, it's just like I don't want to play a token.
I will say that's actually a good point. It is not that that's hyper relevant, but it is a mecha and a cheap mecha, which makes it easier to turn on an early mothership. So hey, at least you can start ramping with that in a world in which we're going into a slower meta. I don't know. I mean, the mecha key family type is at least relevant enough to always keep in mind, especially when you're talking about the cheaper ones because they tend to be more mid-rangey. So, moving on from there, we got Divine Wargear Mega Tier, 7 cost, 3 white reduction android on levels 1 and 2. When one of your opponent's spirits is returned to their hand, you may pay Soul Core to refresh the spirit. And then on level 2, when the spirit blocks, select one of your opponent's spirits with 4k or fewer BP and return it to their hand. It's a 6k for 1 and a 9k for 3.
Yeah, this guy's cool.
Yeah.
Again, I don't love him. I think he's probably slightly above average. I mean, 9k for 3 cores is a pretty big deal. So
yeah, I think the weird part about the bounce deck right? And it's just like there's quite a few cards. It's like, is it duck that cares about like you bounce, like things being bounced on your opponent's turn? It's just, it feels like white doesn't have. It feels like the bounce removal for white doesn't line up great with how they want these kind of cards to work, right? Like you got Dream Bomb, which is like just like generally great and everything, but then the rest of them are all like when block bounces, or like you have like Valkyrie Mist and then Big Mist, which I forget her name, which are just like main phase bounces. So it feels like there's this kind of like gap in white's repertoire of like battle phase bounce that doesn't line up because the defensive ones aren't good enough and the offensive ones are just non-existent. And it's just kind of this weird like play of like, we have all these payoffs for bouncing on like our opponent's turn or during our combat phase, but without really the enablers to kind of make that viable. And it doesn't really make the payoffs good. So like, I like this card. I just don't think there's enough that goes around it. I mean, aside from the fact that it's also a 7 cost, to like make it work, which is like how I feel for a lot of these like bounce matters cards.
Yeah. So going with what you said, and only because I've been testing like a white deck quite a bit lately, is that this card works extremely well with Odin.
Mm-hmm.
The level 1-2 effect of this card, not being tied to like when it attacks or only attack phase or whatever, is a pretty big deal when you have cards like Odin and Buffalong Bill. So you can set up pretty big turns where you can like attack with this guy, attack with Odin, bounce something, untap him, so on and so forth. I don't think he's bad. Like I said, I think he's definitely above average and does have a home. It's just I don't know. Like that deck is already super core starved. So when you're adding in basically a 4 or 5 core, card that does that then eats up 3 more cores, it's maybe that's not what you're looking for, but I think this card is very good.
Yeah, if you didn't mention, I was just going to echo the Buffalong Bill, right? That's the one that allows you to then actually make it aggressive, right? Because it's going to turn on the one blocks. But the other part too is like it's an android, and that matters for like 2 cards, I think. So like, sure, I guess, but yeah. Otherwise, I just like the idea of having something that goes with Buffalong Bill, and I didn't even think about Odin, so yeah, definitely Odin as well. That you're now just having like this mid-range bounce deck that white can. Maybe it's what you use to stall it long enough for Scotty, and then Scotty brings you home. I have no idea, but it's a very interesting card to see where it's going to line up. But I think
it for me it fits into like the Ryan Matos like Pump Spring style deck, right? I mean, that's kind of where this card is really designed to fit into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I don't hate that deck personally. I mean, I revisit it every set just to kind of see how I feel it out. So I think it comes together a little bit more. So then we go into green. We got Ghost Mantis, 6 cost, 3 green reduction insectoids on level 1 and 2 during your attack step. When one of your insectoid, carapace, or great beetle spirits is destroyed, place a core from the void into your reserve. And then on level 2, when destroyed, refresh all your insectoid, carapace, and great beetle spirits. 5k for 1, 8k for 4. I mean, this is only ever as good as like our insect, carapace, and great. I think there's a world in which like maybe there's what is it, Dinah? Is he the one that lets you like flash in
Armor Tree?
Armor Tree. Yeah. So like I think there's a world in which maybe the Armor Tree deck can kind of bring this together. But unfortunately, I think right now we're in a world where if you are playing like the insectoid carapace deck, you're very much low to the ground. And if you're going like bigger, then you're only really playing like Worker Ant-Man, maybe Amaranth to get a couple of ramps off so that you can get into your bigger pieces. I don't think the all bug deck is there, but
yeah, this card's just kind of fine. It's pretty mediocre. I think stats are cool, but
I do like the stats. Yeah,
most of green cards have similar stats, so it's really nothing exciting there.
Mm-hmm. There is something to say about just being able to ram your tokens into your opponents, and then like you like core up a bunch, and then maybe you play Queen Ant Train, and then you just kind of go from there. But I think at the moment, outside of the magical BSS tables that I keep being told exist, but I have never played at before, I don't think this is happening. So we got Air Commodore Grang, 4 cost, 2 green reduction, Prey Bird. On levels 1 and 2, it has Gale. And on level 2, during your attack step, when one of your opponent's spirits is exhausted by a Gale effect, select one of your opponent's spirits and exhausted. So it like adds like a +1 to the Gale abilities of your other Gales. It's a 3k for 1, a 6k for 4. I'm not decided on this one. I think it's fine. I think having Gale on level 1's a big deal because that means that you can actually ramp 1 automatically without having to have the additional cores for
Highlands.
But I'm not decided on whether I like this or not. I think the +1 on your Gale is cool, but like I almost feel like oftentimes with my Gale decks, I want as many Gale triggers to go off as possible, more so than just kind of extending my Gale trigger. I'm not sure.
Yeah. This card's not bad. Again, I don't think it's great. It's not like a scope out level, green TP card, but again, he's just a little too expensive, right? I mean, 4 cores for level 2 is like that's infinite. In the grand scheme of this game, is like that's just so many cores. And if you invest half your cores into one spirit, you want it to be really freaking powerful, right? And this guy just, I mean, he's not it. And I know that green ramps, and you can use the excuse, well, they have a surplus of cores, but like I don't want that to be the excuse to justify 4 cores at level 2. But he does have Gale at level 1. You can play him for 2 cores. He ramps with Highlands. All that, alone makes him probably playable. I just don't know how excited you are to be playing it.
Yeah. I think the Highlands deck lines up to be more of a multi-attacker deck than a Giga Go Wide Gale for Infinite deck, but
I like the balance and the strength is definitely that you get to select, where Gale is just like, oh, hope I have a big enough Gale to tap down their board sort of thing. But
you do get to choose. That is a pretty big deal. Okay, I didn't notice that.
The fact that it's 4 still is pretty rough. So like you have to have multiple hurricane turns, like ramping you up, which again you'll get there. But the fact that it's a targeted needle shot can matter in certain decks. But if you're playing like against a creature light style of deck, anyways, if they're on white, it's like, okay, Tokiwa taps your board anyways, who cares? And then it's like my next attack is forcing a infinity shield anyways, so like that extra tap didn't matter. So in things like yellow and purple, it can matter a lot. You can make sure that you tap down their 5 costs that they're trying to save for Beldegor or something, right? And they're like, oh, haha, now you can't Beldegor me this turn. Or little stuff like that, but it's very narrow in the color matchups that you really care about it.
Yeah. Then moving on to blue, because now we do get blue TPs. Galad Bolg, 4 cost, 1 blue reduction golem on level 2 and 3. When the spirit attacks, you may exhaust one of your nexuses to place a core from the void onto the nexus you exhausted. So kind of like blue's own little worker Ant-Man. And then while this spirit attacks on level 3, when you destroy one of your opponent's spirits via comparing BP, select one of your nexuses and refresh it. It's a 2k for 1, a 4k for 3, and a 6k for 5. I think the biggest thing that holds this one back is probably just the 4k for 3. 3 cores is a little bit tougher to get on like turn 2, let's say. Especially since like the thing with Ant-Man is you can just play him and swing. This one, it's like you need setup plus him to swing. Now, mind you, blue is the Nexus color, so that's a little bit easier to do. But I do think the way the core math lines up onto it makes it not so worth it, especially since the kind of rampy blue deck probably isn't trying to ramp up cores via attacking the opponent. I don't know. It's kind of neat that they're extending ways in which you can ramp cores in blue, but I don't know if this is the way it wants to do it.
Man, the main thing holding this card back is it costs infinite. 3 cores is 1 million in a blue deck. Like your whole deck costs 1 million cores. Like they really missed an opportunity, I think, to make like a good 2-cost blue spirit. Like that's what that deck wants desperately. Because if you don't have your nexuses early for reduction, you just don't get reduction for the blue deck. So this guy doesn't solve any of that, and it's just another like random idiot. So, he's awful at level 1, and he costs 1,000 cores at level 2. So I don't ever see him being that powerful, but it's has a cool effect. So there's something, I guess.
I swear to God. Go ahead.
Funny that you mentioned a 2-drop because we have Mr. Spring Golem Boy that I'm sure you forgot about.
No, I mean, I know about him. It's just
the exhaust nexus part of it too. But again, I think it's like the whole raid control deck doesn't exist in set 3 is like my big problem with it. where it's like you're just playing Shark instead. So like I see what they were trying to do, like this in the 2-drop, Rammer Golem, whatever. Like, sure, I get what the combo that they're trying to set up, but like I can play these 8 bad cards in my deck, or I can just play Shark plus something else that's going to be infinitely better. And it's just like, yes, I understand you need some early game board control options, but this guy just costs way too freaking much. It should have had like triple blue reduction or something to make it even remotely feasible to put in those decks,
or at least double.
Yeah, I'll settle for double.
That said, I think this is like, I find this really funny because I feel like we're gonna get into set 4 reveals in a few months, and John's was like, I can't believe I have to pay 1 core for this effect. 1 core is infinite cores.
It's like, look, 3 cores to play and 3 cores to maintain is literally
it's a lot. It's your turn. It's your turn. Yeah.
The meta has to drastically shift to where that is even passable, because if you do it currently, you're dead.
Yeah.
And of like the context of it for those that are playing like the mono blue crush style, right, which is probably the worst version of the 2 mil decks, but it's like this versus Drag Golem, which is sure 1 more core cost at level 2, but it's 3 reduction by comparison. So like you're more likely to get Drag Golem up, get him for his level 2, and get that extra effect. Where the other Golem is just like, nah, dog, I'm just expensive and screw you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So kind of where that lines up. And then finally, our last TP is Explosive Giant Douglas. 6 cost, 3 blue reduction, War God. On levels 1, 2, and 3, he's got Crush +1. And then on 2 and 3, during your attack step, when a magic card is discarded by your Crush effect, draw a card, then discard a card. 5k for 1, 8k for 4, 10k for 6. Why do I have to discard a card?
Okay, so you and Don go both. All right, listen. No, that is Blue's thing. I totally understand Bandai. Look, I get it. Blue is filtering. 100% love you. I understand. Why is it not draw 2 for the love of God? Like, we have to work so goddamn hard for this card. Like, nothing infuriates me as much as this bloody card. And look, you're going to say, oh, but it's a War God, so it has a flex card, and now you can use the muscle flex, whatever it's even called. No, it's still trash. You're not playing this card, man. I am so angry with this one. All right, there we go.
I think the balancing act that's nice is I think we have one that works with like if your opponent mills a spirit, you get like a core or something. That's the bull pit dog or whatever.
That's boy bulldog that comes down at 2 and is like actually fine for the crush deck.
Yeah, so I think there's this like nice like duality between hey, if you mill a magic card or if you mill a spirit, but like you have to do so much effort to get this guy on board. I don't know why it couldn't have been like, yeah, sure, blue filters, whatever, but it should have been at least draw 2. Like, come on, at least give me a card here.
It's just another card that takes infinite cores to maintain. Like, this is like Blue's thing. Like, okay, he has triple reduction, so you can at least play him for pretty cheap, and playing him at level 1 as a 5k is fine, but like 4 cores to make him an 8k, like, you have to think, like, how many games do you play where you have like 10 cores in play? Like the game's usually over by then. So you have to use half your cores to make 1 8k. Like that's just not it.
Yeah, it's I think one of the biggest things with like design for the game, I think it's just there probably needs to be a little bit tightening up on the like power curve, right? Of like cost. It's a little bit harder to do in Battle Spirits because like you have like multiple levels which can account for like, whereas for like Magic, let's say, it's very easy to say like a 2 cost vanilla should be a 2/2 and then you just go power curve from there. But it's just like 4 maintenance cores for an 8k on a 6 cost with 3 reductions, whereas like let's say like a card with Mermaid that does actually care about its level 2, but now it's like 5 cores, 3 reductions, which means she's actually only costing us 2, and then 3 cores to maintain, but on that maintenance you're getting like whatever, like 6 cores worth of value depending on what level 2s you get from your other nexuses. So it's
this reminds me of like all the vanillas, right? How they just have random AF cores to like power ratios. And I want to have a conversation with the guy at Bandai who comes up with these and like just please explain to me how both hands is 4 cost, 1 reduction with the shittiest stat line you've ever seen in your life. It's like, bruh, like how do you just have like a random number generator making your D&D characters, and you're just like, let's just use this to make vanillas. I mean, if you're not an eagle, your stats just suck. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and then if you're an eagle, your stats are insane.
There's the goat himself. Yeah, it's crazy.
The last thing that really bothers me about the TP card, right, is like we just talked about Drag Golem, which if you're playing the Crush deck is the most important spirit for you, which already requires 4 cores.
4 cores,
and now you're telling me I have another 4 cores to play on this guy to get his other relevant effect. Like, did I just get like the triple high roll bulldog and my opponent had like no start and I just got a billion cores off of the best boy 2-drop doggo spirit? Probably not. Like, a lot of times you have to have only 1 or 2 cores on your other spirits because Drag Golem is greedy, but its effect is so strong. Like, you have to keep 4 cores on him. So I don't know where all these extra cores are coming out. Like, one issue I talked about is just like, I feel like we want Worker Ant-Man in this mono blue Crush deck, and then that doesn't feel good either. Like,
but then we're just killing our opponent.
Yeah, exactly. Man, the number of games and this was before Mandala, so like, sure, Mandala helps out that issue, but the number of games where I like just killed my opponent with the blue Crush deck that's just like, oh, sorry, I got there, and they still had like 20 cards left in deck. I'm like, how did this get to this point? Like, why am I attacking at all? Let me just play Mandala now instead. Like,
that's just another reason why, I don't like Crush, right? Is that, you either kill your opponent prior to milling them out, or the cards that you mill don't matter because they're getting chunked for 12 and 3 turns anyway for like no core investment. So, it's so core starved just on the front end anyway. And then, you just add cards like whatever his name is, Edward. I don't know what his name is, that TP card that just it just doesn't do anything because it takes so many cores. And you have your people listening there and be like, well, we can just ramp with other cards. And it's like, man, you're playing a different Battle Spirits than we are. If you feel like you can ramp to a point where you can have 4 cores on all your cards in play, but it's
one day I dream to play this magical Battle Spirits that they all play.
Like I would have bet so much money that the blue TP cards just would have been cracked because they needed to be, and they're just not.
I'm not allowed to have nice things, I guess.
Yeah.
But to be fair, we saw the same thing with set 2 in green, right? Like, set green now looks insane with set 3 because of the new Gale and all that good stuff. So it's like, yes, they could have probably just pushed the envelope a little bit and I would have been, happy with it. And I think most people would have been happy with like blue coming online, but most likely with set 3, we're going to have like 50-50, color splits of decks. Blue is going to be playing the support role. And then hopefully in set 4, when it gets its dual symbol, Hydra, raid, multi-attacker shenanigans, right? Then mono blue, because everyone plays, ice shields and dream bombs and whatever, can finally come online. But set 2 blues, at least it's not as bad from an overall card pool. And like, blue obviously has cracked stuff like Mandela, like Sharks, or like Floodstream. There's good playable cards that are definitely gonna have a meta impact. I just wish there was an all blue deck that didn't suck. Is what I'll just say, the short version of it.
Yeah, I think that'll come with Nexus density, right? Like, I think it's just the deeper the card pool is for them to be able to pull from. I think it's very hard for them to justify making like every single Nexus as strong as like Unchained Arena, let's say. So there's a little bit of balance there on that note. So I think with the deepening of the card pool, I will say, like, blue is still wildly more playable than green was out of the gate. So I think it's going to be at least great to see it be a part of the meta, aside from like the one-off card, which was like Thorn Prison back in the day, like a few months ago. So
forgotten memory. Let's move on.
So I think out of the gate, blue's fine. It's exciting enough to actually make a difference in the game. And then hopefully with the deepening of the card pool. Well, my biggest thing with the deepening of the card pool is that, one, obviously expand on blue because it's just got introduced, but also finally bring new ways to play for the other colors. Like, I'm tired of playing like, these archetypes that were kind of fleshed out across like 3 sets. Give me a new way to play the decks. Give me a new way to play the colors. And I think that's when I think those are the biggest excitement points for me moving into set 4 when we're past this. But who up next is the meta, so we'll see where the set 3 meta evolves, and it'll be a very quick evolution because it's going to be grand open, 3 weeks of nothing, grand open, pro tour, whatever. So it's then
a month and then Worlds. So.
Yeah, so it's going to be an insane back-to-back of people scrambling to figure out the meta and trying to adjust really quick for 3 weeks. and then like a resting period of like 3 weeks where people can like actually sit down and do like multiple weeks of testing to kind of like optimize everything, and then kind of close in on the Pro Tour and Worlds to really have like a refined meta. So it'll create a very interesting situation where it ought to be very exciting very early on. And then you can at least like tune into the end to kind of see where it all solidified. So it's weird. It's a little funky. It's a lot of flying about for people who are going to be participating in Wave 3. But I think it should lend itself for at least an exciting, fingers crossed on a healthy meta, an exciting kind of organized play season. So. Alrighty. So with that said, I will say before we cap off, we're all team cereal first, right? Like that's no questions asked.
Yes.
Yes. 100%. And I will say to Vire's credit, I'm also totally okay with like dry cereal as a snack.
That's fine.
Like life checks, totally fine. Both those options, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you put your milk first, you are a psychopath.
Yeah, so those who are listening have no idea what my sign means or what he's talking about. Is that there was a discussion on the Discord earlier this week where there was at least a couple people who said that the milk goes in first, followed by the cereal, and those people are weird.
I'm just shocked at how many people came forward and was like, yeah, no, milk first is fine. Like, what?
Yeah, not fine.
Where are you hiding? Who are you people?
Oh, God. It's just, I don't know. It's like, how do you know how much milk when you don't even know how much? Anyways, that's a whole different thing. Okay, I think we've said enough about that. Thank you, everyone, for joining the Church of Pentan on this week's episode. Look forward to future weeks as we kind of close into the Pro Tour. And once again, if you're going to the Pro Tour, let us know. Feel free to say hi. We'll be there to chat, hang out, have a good time. With that said, we'll catch you guys next week. Till then, may the cores be our saviors.